without cost. And now as we will also not do what they have done in the past, we will not make the mistake.
We will develop differently.
Yeah, but it depends on the finances that we are getting. Because the technologies are there, we cannot use them because there are strings attached to using those technologies. But as the executive director of the National Environment Agency has rightly put it, the per capita GEF funding that Gambia has received, that is more than any other African continent, in the continent. That is a good sign, and we will continue. And we will continue to look for funding and also to the negotiations on how we are going to proceed. But in the Gambia, at the level of here, we owe it to the communities, we owe it to Gambians to let them know what we have been negotiating on their behalf. And we have also people on the ground who have been working with us, because if it's not for them, they will inform us who are at the policy level for the informed policies that are supposed to be taken up by government. So at the level of the negotiations in Doha, at the level of the ministerial negotiations, it was also tough, and it had a stall, and you know something about it because you were there with us. So at that level, we've also proven, although if we look at everything together, we can always say that our partners were not open enough for their political will, at least the political will that we expected from them, we did not get it.
That's why I'm still interested in maybe Pa Ousman, for you to elaborate this point of the legal agreement that you think can be concocted in the near future, given the fact that it is very crucial, as you know, as the minister rightly pointed out, in one of our interviews. This is a question of a race against time now, and 2020 is, I think, the boundary. If we go beyond 2020 and we cannot have the reduction in emissions that we want, this can spell catastrophe for the entire globe. Now, can you please elaborate on that?
Yes, Ismaila, we are looking forward to a legal agreement that is legally binding by 2015 under the new Doha Gateway. But we would face some challenges in the sense that having a legal agreement that would apply to all of us, the United States, China, India, of course with differentiations in terms of equity, because we really need to ensure that we look at equitable principles, because what applies to the United States cannot apply to China because of their historical responsibilities, although China is the biggest emitter now, and their per capita emission is also lower than that of the United States. And we know that you have to consider politics and also trade, because climate change cuts across everything now. But our position is for us to have a legally binding agreement by 2015. India and China are saying that it is better for us to have something that people would be willing to do rather than applying something that is legal across the board. So we have different interpretations even of what is legal. If you could recall in Durban, we had 3 different textual proposals as part of our decision for the legal nature of the outcome. You have a protocol, you have a legal outcome, you also have a legal agreement that is enforceable. So we hope we would come up with a protocol that would apply to all of us. But we would start the discussions now, because what is most important is for us to agree on the equity. That means what would apply to the Gambia cannot apply to China and India, but what would apply to India cannot also apply to the United States and the European Union. Although the US is saying that we must agree on something that is symmetrical. Whatever they do, China or India will do, but also it has to be in accordance with the laws, their own laws and their own national circumstances. And I think one thing that we also need to say here is the support that we have received from UNDP, because thanks to UNDP and government, we were able to go in a bigger group, because the secretariat of the convention supported only 3 people, but UNDP supported an additional 7 people to ensure that we have a very big team through the UNDP Gambia government country program that supported the sectors. It is going to be a challenge, Ismaila, but we are ready for the task, and we hope we will get something. You could recall that during the 9th hour, when the proposed text was submitted to all the parties, the presidency of the COP Qatar had to call the LDC group, because as you rightly stated, they were saying that we were blocking the talk, or we were there with the minister, and we insisted that we must have a package that is balanced, and that is why they were able to give in to some of the issues. If not, we would have had something that is even weaker than what was agreed.
We said we either have a package or we leave it.
Yeah.
Either a package or leave it, all right. Now, given these hurdles in negotiations, which definitely need to be translated into concrete actions in our various countries, what do you think now is the way forward, Mr. Pasa?
Yes, I believe that in Gambia we have to mainstream climate change into development agenda. And mainstreaming is not just policies, but even infrastructure, because you can see that nowadays we have a lot of floods, and these floods damage bridges. So we have to design our bridges in such a way that they will be able to withstand the runoff that is created. So mainstreaming is a very, very important aspect. And also we go into new energy forms. We have a new project which is funded by Jeff, which is looking at renewable energy. It's a $5 million project, and is actually building windmills. If you go to Tangi, you'll see 2 big windmills, and we're going to have different types of solar systems all over the country under this project, and it's funded by Jeff. So we actually, at the national level, have seen that climate change mainstreaming and adaptation is important. Without or with donor funding, we're going to do our own efforts at national level to really adapt to climate change. And I think the consciousness in Gambia is very high in this regard, and I'm hopeful that this will be done. Thank you.
Mr. Kasama, we are just almost running out of time. Maybe for a conclusion, what do you think should be the concrete steps that developing countries like the Gambia should take to implement climate change activities and to make sure that we benefit from the negotiations? As you can see, now this is like as they usually put it, common but differentiated responsibilities. We are not responsible for polluting, or at least for the emissions that are being mitigated now, but we all equally suffer from the negative consequences. Now, what do you think should be the way forward for action, concrete action on the ground in our countries?
Thank you, Ismail. As Mr. Saad highlighted earlier on, I think climate change should be mainstreamed into a lot of sectors. Like in the school curriculum, kids should be taught about climate change issues, environmental management, and environment and biodiversity issues from the primary level. Because it's easier for kids to learn this. Once they do, they grow with this, then they'll be environmentally responsible tomorrow. Because climate change does not only affect human beings, but it affects animals as well. And sometimes it's difficult. When flood comes, it goes away with everything that we have in our protected areas. It washes away snakes, other animals that has a lot of impact on the environment. So it is important in our view, or it is important in my personal view, that climate change is mainstream into formal curriculum, and so that kids can know what is all about climate change. And at the non-formal level too, we can organize theater groups, do community consultations at all levels to teach people about the issues about deforestation and forest degradation. Because what I mean is, deforestation refers to the negative impact of human activity on the forest. I mean, you impede the productivity of the forest cover, but forest deforestation would mean permanently removing forest cover. That is, either turning forest into you can turn forest into human settlement, you can permanently remove forest into, you can turn the forest land into into agricultural production, that's also going to increase emission level.